it's a prayer in faith. He's asking for deliverance, but he has also seen the angels. He's heard the voice of the Lord, and he believes. All right, so now I won't spend any time on this. Now he does the waves of gifts. He sends one group with a group of with gifts. He's trying to soften the blow, so to speak, right? Then he sends another group with a whole separate set of gifts, and then he sends another group behind, and they're coming in waves. So that when you come upon Esau and you see him say, "Yes, I am Jacob's servant," and what you see here, these camels, these everything, these are gifts for his brother Esau, and so he's being very shrewd here, right? Because he has no idea what's in Esau's heart and mind. Last time he saw him 20 years ago, Esau was literally saying, "I'm going to kill him." And he was dead serious. So he's going on faith and not by sight. All right, let's skip to verse 22. Does someone want to read 22 through the end of the chapter? Because this is the really good stuff.
The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream and everything else that he had, and Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip socket was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel.
Yep, that's fine.
Saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." The sun arose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. Therefore to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh.
Very good. All right. So remember now, he only has 11. We're not to 12 tribes yet, because when you look at your handout again, Benjamin is not born until Genesis 35, right? So we have 11 sons from the 4 wives. All right, so now in the text here in the Hebrew, so now they've all crossed the stream and he's going to camp by himself, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
You said they don't count the women in this as children.
They don't count the women as children.
Well, see, you said 11 sons, and then in the Bible it says he took his 11 children. Did they not have any girls?
Dinah comes later.
So they only had boys.
No, they had a daughter, Dinah.
Okay.
I can't remember when Dinah is born. She's in one of our handouts here.
Yeah,
She's
in this one.
Oh, she's in the picture one.
Okay, all right.
Dinah comes later. So, and we'll get to Dinah and her tragic story here.
Okay, I was just curious.
She is also of Leah.
Okay.
Yep. All right. And I forget what chapter she's born in. It's in one of...
My heavens.
It's like chapter 30 maybe? I can't remember. I think it might be like chapter 30.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dinah does play a role here, and we'll get to her momentarily. Okay, so he's talking about the 11 sons basically, but of course Dinah is one of the children. But oftentimes in the text there, most of the time and attention is spent to thee. Because you got to remember, Moses is also the central, like when you read any book, there's lots and lots of characters going around. But there's normally one or two central characters, right? And so if an author is long-winded, like you've ever read Leo Tolstoy, a lot of he's a huge Russian author from a couple hundred years ago. Anyways, he spends almost an inordinate amount of time explaining every little tiny detail, and you wish his 800-page, this is my personality, his 800-page books would be 400 pages and he'd get to the point, right? So remember, Moses is now it is really expensive and difficult to write out. They didn't have printing presses back then. So these books would either have to go on stone or clay or leather or a paper product. Leather was called vellum, and paper was papyri. It was made actually out of reeds along the river, and they would get them together, they stamp and glue. So it's very difficult, right? And so he can't go into every single tiny detail, right? He's got to just kind of get to the point, right? And so what's the whole point of everything that Moses is saying in the law, in the 5 books, the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses? It's all about the seed, right? So that's why he will ignore some of the, he won't even spend near as much time on some of the lesser brothers, right? He's going to spend a lot more time on the direct lineage of the seed.
So this man he was wrestling with, was this like an angel? Yeah,
well, we're going to see, right?
Okay.
So back to 32, Moses is going to tell us. So now the word here, and Jacob was left alone, verse 24, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day, which is dawn, all night long in the darkness, right? You were talking earlier about not being able to sleep well, and sometimes you
wrestle all night because your dreams just won't stop.
Yes, and you wrestle with and you can't shut your brain off, as they say, right? But this is actual physical wrestling, right? And the word here is a man. In Hebrew, there's 2 words. One is the personal name man, which is Adam, and the other I think is Ish. And Ish is a man, but it's not a personal. It'd be like saying "Hey man," as American hippies do. I myself say that.
How do we know this is a physical wrestling versus a mental wrestling?
Yeah, because he's going to get touched on the hip and get an arthritic.
So it's simply because he touched him that
they're physically wrestling.
Okay.
And he's like, let me go, let me go, let me go. And he goes, I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me, right? And he's like, okay. And he touched the side of his hip. Ah! When God says let go, you better let go. All right. So anyways, right now we just know it's a man. Like, who is this man? He comes out of nowhere and just grabs Jacob in the dark, right? And so this man is trying to prevail, but he can't prevail against Jacob. Remember, Jacob is a guy now who's been battle hardened, if you will, because he's been out in the forests and the wilderness tending flocks and sheep and rolling stones away from. So he's like Conan the Barbarian in the. Yeah, he's this weak little boy. And you ever see Conan the Barbarian?
Yeah.
There's some gruesome parts to it. I don't totally recommend it, but I saw it when I was younger, and there's certain images you can't get out of your head now, right? But one of the takeaways of that initial movie is his suffering made him stronger, right? So Conan is enslaved. He puts his hand to that thing. He's got to push it. And he pushes that thing around and around and around for like 20 years. And all of a sudden he comes out and he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He goes from this weak little boy to Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And so it is with Jacob. Jacob is now, he's the Lord in the flesh is the man in the flesh is not able to prevail against him. He's like, let me go, let me go. He goes, I will not let you go unless you bless me. And here comes the important part. then he said, what is your name? Verse 27, he said, Jacob. Now remember, Jacob means there's kind of a twofold heel catcher, because remember, he came out of the womb second, but by clutching the heel of his brother Esau, coming out of the birth canal, right? And a heel catcher can also be a slang for trickster, right? One who trips you up. Well, what is Jacob doing to Esau? He's trying to trip up Esau to get ahead. He was born second place, but he's going to trip up his brother to become first place. Then he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, right? Or Israel, as we say. For you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed. Now, let me break out the Hebrew for you here a little bit. Your name shall no longer be heel catcher, but Prince of God, right? For you have striven, and the Hebrew word is power. You have power with Elohim and with Ish, with mankind, and have prevailed. So all this heel catching has worked out for him, but only by the grace of Elohim. Does that all make sense? Mm-hmm. So often people will say, because of this text, that Israel translated as one who strives with God. But actually the Hebrew can even be translated prince, because it goes on and says, you have striven, and they're trying to capture the meaning of the Hebrew here. And he has striven both in prayer and physically in wrestling, right? And holding on to the promise. I always think that's kind of cool. Jacob's a heel catcher, but what does he do with the promises of God? He clings on to them and he doesn't let go. So I would say, if you're in the darkness and if you're worried about some family member who's going to come get you, or whatever it is that you worry about in this life, or the Labans of this world are trying to cheat you, whatever it is that you're going through, follow Jacob's example. Cling, hold on, don't let go, right? Remind the Lord of his promises, right? So he says, your name shall be Prince of El, L-E-L is the L ending for God in his name. And you have power with Elohim and with men. Well, what is the power that you have over God? You are a creature. Jacob is a creature. I am a creature. None of us has power over God. But you do have a power if you hold fast by faith, right? The Lord is seeking relationship with human beings, and most people dismiss that. Most, I'm going to be preaching on this tonight from the text in Matthew 22. Most people are given this blessing and they just let it go. And it's the worst thing in the world. You know, you're raised in the church, you're baptized into Christ Jesus, or even in the Old Testament, you have the covenant of circumcision. You have all the promises of God. If you'll just cling to them, if you'll just hold fast and not let your own heart and mind lead you astray, not let the cares of this world choke your faith out, right? Just hold fast, right? And because he holds fast, in the spite of even the circumstances of 400 guys if 400 people roll up to your house, you might be a bit concerned. Even if you've got some ammo, you still might be concerned if 400 people roll up to your front porch, right? So in spite of all the physical evidence, he's clinging fast and holding fast. So now he names him, just like he did with Abraham. He gives him a new name, which is Prince of God, and saying you now have power with God and with men.
The paragraph above that, where you talk about Theophany, you didn't mention that.
The what?
The pre-incarnation appearance.
Yeah, okay, so now that's where we're getting to here at the end.
Oh, okay.
He says, because Jacob's going to tell us through Moses, please tell me your name. But he says, why do you ask my name? Right? You already know who I am, right? And you know it not only personally, but you've known it through your father and your grandfather. That is, all the names that we've already had for the Hebrew in the first 32 chapters, right? Which names like Elohim, names like Yahweh, names like, remember, El Roi, the God who sees. I forget some of the others. Adonai, which means Lord. El Elyon, the Most High God. There's all these names that are given to him. Why do you ask my name? You know who I am, right? Maybe Jacob was hoping for another name. I don't know. Anyways, so Jacob called the name of that place Peniel or Penel, or I'm not sure exactly how to say that diphthong there, the IE at the end. And he says, "For I have seen Elohim face to face, and yet my life has been spared or delivered." Right? So he knows who the Ish, who the man is. And that man is, as the church fathers argue, and as the holy apostles argue, that man is the second person of the Trinity, Theophany. Theo, God, enlightenment. A light-bearing appearance in the flesh of the second person of the Trinity. I'll give you a couple of terms here, and you can write this down. The first, so you got theophany, theo in Greek meaning God, Theophany, remember epiphany, enlightened by God, and then here's another angelomorphic. An angel, a messenger who is morphed into the flesh, who is God, right? Elohim, plural ending in Hebrew, right? God in the flesh, the one who appears to Adam and Eve in the garden, to the patriarchs, is always the second person of the Trinity. Remember, the Father sends the Son into creation, right? It's not the Father coming into creation, it's the Son coming into creation. So who forms Adam out of the dust of the earth and breathes into him, and Adam becomes a living creature, living nephesh in the Hebrew, a self-actualized, self-aware, cognitively functioning, not a raccoon, but a man, right? It's the second person of the Trinity. So a theophanic or theophany appearance, angelomorphic Christology, that is the Christ who is the divine Logos, the Word made flesh, as John says in John chapter 1. You can read about that. And he came to us and he tabernacled among us. How did he pitch his tent among us? In the flesh. Incarne in Latin. Incarne. In the flesh. When you go to the Mexican restaurant for lunch, or maybe I'm telegraphing what I want to do, and you have carne asada, that's steak tacos, right? You want what's the 1983 commercial? Where's the beef?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The old ladies, right? Where's the beef? I don't want these thin patties. I want a half pound.
She looks little when she comes up the counter too.
Where's the beef, right? All right, so the Jabbok, you'll notice on the map, is one of the east to west streams. There's three major east to west streams that all feed the north-south Jordan, and the Jabbok is the middle of the three. So he's coming in through what's modern Jordan, and he's going to cross the Jabbok, and then he's going to cross eventually the Jordan, which is further to the west, and then he's going to enter back into the land. But before he enters, he has to face his brother, and he has to face Yahweh, or Elohim in the flesh, and he's renamed, but there's a cost with wrestling with the Lord and not letting go in his fallen flesh. If you're going to see God face to face, the encounter is not only memorable, but it can be a little costly. And so now he's got this arthritic hip, and the sinew there, the Hebrew word, which I thought was kind of interesting, is it shrank. So there's an extreme tightening in his hip. oftentimes with sinews or tendons, you can stretch them, and then that causes pain too. But literally, it like tightened up on him, and so now he's walking like this for the rest of his life.
Is
So-
it true what it says here,
He prevailed, but not without cost.
that they don't eat that meat any, is that in all the animals?
So that
Is
became a tradition amongst
That's
the
the
Jews.
good meat.
They would not eat the tendon that was on
Oh,
the
I
thigh,
get it.
right?
Okay.
It's like that.
And it was to remind them of their forefathers' encounter, because they're all of the 12 tribes of the 12 sons of
Okay.
Jacob, that their father wrestled with God, right? And so if you listen to a lot of rabbis, they'll still talk about Israel wrestling with Yahweh, right? Well, I don't want to say too much, because
Wait a minute.
anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. So there's some interesting stuff that's, as I said earlier, you either wrestle by faith or you wrestle by unbelief, and the Lord expects us to wrestle by faith and not by wrath or accusations or unbelief, right? And I'll give you an example here in a moment. So he's renamed, he's hit in the flesh, and so now finally they're going to meet up. Next week we will get to that in chapter 33. Perfect timing. You can go in peace, serve the Lord. Internet, bye. You have to hit the silver button first.
Yeah.